Hello and welcome to session 36 of Direct Tax 2, 4th semester BCom paper of Mangalore University. In this particular session, we are going to learn about exemption under section 54B and section 54D, and we will be solving a related problem in the second part of this particular session. Now let's understand what is this section 54B. Capital gain arising from the transfer of agricultural land in an urban area. That is covered under section 54B. In the aspects as to what is not a capital asset, probably session 32, we had discussed agricultural land situated in a rural area is not a capital asset. So here we are talking about transfer of agricultural land in an urban area. So in the city or within the limits of the municipality or cantonment board, we are talking about transfer of agricultural land, and this is covered under section 54B. What are the rules? Any capital gain arising on the transfer of agricultural land situated in an urban area is exempt subject to following conditions. First one, the agricultural land must be owned by an individual or HUF. That means 54B deduction is also not available to firms, to cooperative society, or to companies. So section 54 and section 54B are confined only to individuals and HUF. So the agricultural land must be owned by an individual or HUF for at least 2 years before the date of transfer. Let me share a very, very important point. As far as urban agricultural land is concerned, if the period of holding is less than 36 months, it is a short-term capital asset. But if the period of holding is 36 months or more, it is a long-term capital asset. Remember, as far as residential property is concerned, the period of holding is less than 24 months and more than 24 months, 24 months and more. But in case of agricultural land, the period of holding is 36 months. So if the land is held for less than 36 months, it's a short-term capital asset. If the agricultural land is held for more than 36 months, 36 months and more, it is a long-term capital asset. So the rule says it must be held for at least 2 years. Suppose if the agricultural land is sold anywhere before the completion of 24th month and 36th month, the gain that will arise is short-term. But if the same agricultural land is transferred after 36 months, then the gain that will arise, gain or loss that will arise will be long-term. We have to understand this very important point. That's why section 54B can be claimed as exemption in computation of short-term capital gain as well as in computation of long-term capital gain. So agricultural land must be held for at least 2 years before it transferred. The SSE must purchase. Now to claim exemption, SSE must purchase within 2 years from the date of transfer any other land for agricultural purposes. So the SSE to claim exemption under 54B must purchase any other agricultural land. And when I say any other agricultural land, such an agricultural land can be in an urban area. It can also be in a rural area. Because the idea is to purchase a land for agricultural purpose. Whether it is urban area, rural area, it does not matter. Next, what is the exemption limit? Any capital gain arising from the transfer of such agricultural land is exempt subject to the cost of the new agricultural land purchased within 2 years from the date of transfer. So capital gain arising from the transfer of agricultural land is exempt. That means you can reduce to the cost of the new agricultural land purchased within 2 years from the date of transfer. Also, if the SSE deposits that money, say is looking out for a quality agricultural land, but is not able to locate one, and suppose in the meantime, within the due date of filing return of income, that is 31st of July, this capital gain amount not utilized for acquisition of new agricultural land before due date for furnishing of return of income can be deposited in an account called capital gain account scheme. Now, withdrawal of exemption. This new agricultural land which is purchased, and if it is transferred within 3 years from the date of purchase, then the exemption given earlier will be withdrawn. and deducted from the cost of acquisition of the new agricultural land to calculate short-term capital gain. So as I said, the period of holding for agricultural land is 36 months. If it is less than 36 months, it is a short term. If it is 36 months and more, it is a long term. So the rule is the new agricultural land cannot be transferred within 3 years from the date of purchase. If it is transferred, then the exemption given earlier will be withdrawn and it will be deducted from the cost of acquisition of this new agricultural land to calculate short-term capital gain. Also, the capital gain amount, account scheme amount, if unutilized, you have to purchase within 2 years from the transfer of that agricultural land. Suppose it remains unutilized, it remains in the account, or only part of the amount remains unutilized in CGAS itself, then such capital gain will be treated, as either short-term or long-term capital gain when the specified period expires. So it will be treated as short-term if that original asset was a short-term capital asset. The gain will be treated as long-term capital gain if the original asset was a long-term capital asset, and that too when the specified period expires. So this is about section 54B. Let's look at section 54D now. Capital gain arising from the compulsory acquisition of land and building forming part of industrial undertaking covered under section 54D. Compulsory acquisition of land and building forming part of industrial undertaking. We have to understand this. Land is not a depreciable asset. Exclusive land is not a depreciable asset, but building is a depreciable asset. So we have a depreciable and a non-depreciable asset included in section 54D. So capital gain arising from the compulsory acquisition of land and building forming part of industrial undertaking. Now, like section 54B, section 54D is also allowable as deduction in computation of capital gain, that is short term as well as long term, because land is not a depreciable asset. And if the land, if it is for industrial undertaking, it is held for more than 36 months. For residential purpose, it is 24 months and more. This is for industrial purpose. So more than 36 months, it will become a long-term capital asset. But since building is a depreciable asset, irrespective of the period of holding, whether you hold it for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 60 months, or 84 months, since it is a depreciable asset, the gain or loss arising on the transfer of building will always be short term. Now, what are the rules as far as section 54D is concerned? Any capital gain arising on the transfer by way of compulsory acquisition. So the businessman is not transferring his industrial undertaking. Rather, it has been compulsorily acquired under any law, is exempt subject to following conditions. What are the conditions? Land or building should be used by the SSE for the purpose of an industrial undertaking for at least 2 years before the transfer. So that land and or building which is acquired under the law, the SSE must have used it for industrial undertaking purpose for at least 2 years before the transfer. The SSE within a period of 3 years after such transfer must purchase a new land or new building or construct a building for the purpose of shifting or re-establishing the industrial undertaking. So once the land or building is compulsory acquired, within 3 years from that particular date, the SSE must purchase a new land or must purchase a new building or must construct a building for the purpose of shifting or re-establishing the industrial undertaking. So 3 years time period is given for re-establishing. Now, what is the exemption limit? Capital gain exempt is limited to the extent of the cost of the new land or building. So whatever is the cost of the new land or building, such an amount can be claimed as exemption under section 54D. Now, where the capital gain amount is not utilized for the purchase or construction of the new land or building within the due date of furnishing the return of income, that is within 31st of July, the SSE can deposit it in capital gain account scheme. But the rule remains the same. It must be utilized within the specified period, that is within 3 years. What is the withdrawal rule? The new asset, that is land or building, which has been done for the purpose of re-establishing or setting up a new industrial undertaking, should not be transferred within a period of 3 years of its purchase. So whatever you have set newly, the SSC cannot transfer within a period of 3 years. If transferred, then the exemption given earlier will be withdrawn and will be deducted from the cost of acquisition in the computation of short-term capital gain. As I said, that land or building for industrial undertaking purpose is 36 months and more. And if it is transferred within 3 years, whatever exemption was enjoyed earlier, that exemption amount will be claimed as a deduction from the cost of acquisition in the computation of short-term capital gain, that is in the previous year in which the new asset is transferred. Also, if the capital gain amount account scheme balance is not utilized within a period of 3 years, then it will be treated as capital gain of the previous year in which the specified period expires. So if the land was held for more than 36 months, the gain would be long-term capital gain. But if the land was held for less than 36 months, that is less than 36 months, it will be treated as, the gain would be treated as short-term capital gain. And it goes without saying, as far as the building is concerned, since it's a depreciable asset, the gain is always short-term capital gain. So that's all in this particular session relating to section 54B and section 54D. So a related problem we will solve in the next part of this session. Thank you.